Greetings everyone. So something happened during the Synod that got quite a lot of attention on social media, and that was the meeting of Pope Francis with a nun called Sister Jeannine Gramick. The New Ways Ministry, which is the organization that she has formed, she formed it along with another priest, Father Nugent, quite a while ago now in the 70s. They quite proudly put up a tweet about this event. They pinned it to the top of their Twitter or X feed. In a moment once unimaginable, Pope Francis received Sister Jeannine Gramick, co-founder of New Ways Ministry, at the Vatican today. Why would this moment be considered unimaginable? Well, we'll get to that in just a second. Let's have a look at some of the other reactions to this. Here's a tweet from Father James Martin, Jesuit priest. Congratulations to Sister Jeannine Gramick, SL, co-founder of New Ways Ministry, who was received by Pope Francis this afternoon along with her colleagues. A significant step forward in the Church's outreach to LGBTQ Catholics. Father James Martin is very pro-LGBT himself. He has also met with Pope Francis on a number of occasions, and he has posted the picture of himself with Pope Francis proudly. Here is a tweet from a guy named Joshua McElwee, who writes for the National Catholic Reporter, a very liberal pro-LGBT Catholic website. Although actually the National Catholic Reporter was previously asked, or told even by the bishop, to take Catholic out of its name because certain things it had written went against the teachings of the Church, and they refused to do so. They just carried on with the National Catholic Reporter name. Joshua McElwee writes, breaking: Pope Francis today met with Sister Jeannine Gramick, a long-time advocate for LGBTQ Catholics, who had previously been reprimanded by the Vatican and US bishops. Francis met with her and New Ways Ministry staffers for 50 minutes. So he gave them almost an hour to chat with him. Now, if we take a look at the New Ways Ministry website, here's their mission statement. New Ways Ministry is a Catholic outreach that educates and advocates for equity, inclusion, and justice for LGBTQ plus persons. So already, if they're using that acronym, LGBTQ, that's already a red flag. Equipping leaders to build bridges of dialogue within the Church and civil society. New Ways Ministry's core commitments include promoting dialogue and reconciliation grounded in the unity and diversity of the body of Christ, becoming anti-racist in our programming, publications, and internal operations. I don't know what that has to do with LGBTQ plus ministry, but you'll notice that people fighting for these LGBTQ plus rights often bring racism into it as well. They try and equate the two and make it like it's the same kind of fight. Fighting against racism, fighting for gay rights, so to speak. But they're not obviously the same thing. Supporting research and resources that empower pastoral ministers and educators to advance an intersectional understanding of gender identity and sexuality. Fostering holiness and wholeness within the Catholic LGBTQ plus community and allies through spiritual programs and resources. So you could say, some of that here, it's been written so carefully and cleverly that actually maybe they are just trying to minister to people who have same-sex attraction and help them through it. But alas, that obviously isn't the case, because they have been reprimanded by the Church to stop doing what they're doing, and they ignored it. This is why, even though Father James Martin has met with Pope Francis a few times, that was shocking because we know what he's about, but at the same time he hasn't been officially reprimanded because he's very clever in the way he speaks and the language he uses. He'll go right up to the edge. Sometimes he'll even put one foot over the edge, but then he'll kind of draw it back in. He has been caught a few times saying something that he should not have said as a Catholic priest, but a lot of the time he'll just be very, very clever in the language he uses. Whereas the New Ways Ministry have actually been reprimanded and told to stop doing what they're doing. This is from 1999. Given the failure of the repeated attempts of the Church's legitimate authorities to resolve the problems presented by the writings and pastoral activities of the two authors, the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith is obliged to declare for the good of the Catholic faithful that the positions advanced by Sister Jeannine Gramick and Father Robert Nugent regarding the intrinsic evil of homosexual acts and the objective disorder of the homosexual inclination are doctrinally unacceptable because they do not faithfully convey the clear and constant teaching of the Catholic Church in this area. Father Nugent and Sister Gramick have often stated that they seek, in keeping with the Church's teaching, to treat homosexual persons with respect, compassion, and sensitivity. However, the promotion of errors and ambiguities is not consistent with a Christian attitude of true respect and compassion. Persons who are struggling with homosexuality no less than any others have the right to receive the authentic teaching of the Church from those who minister to them. The ambiguities and errors of the approach of Father Nugent and Sister Gramick have caused confusion among the Catholic people and have harmed the community of the Church. And this is the key part. For these reasons, Sister Jeannine Gramick and Father Robert Nugent are permanently prohibited from any pastoral work involving homosexual persons and are ineligible for an undetermined period for any office in their respective religious institutions. So once more, Sister Jeannine Gramick and Father Robert Nugent are permanently prohibited from any pastoral work involving homosexual persons and are ineligible for an undetermined period for any office in their respective religious institutes. And this is signed by Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger before he was Pope Benedict and approved by Pope John Paul II. So that's why Sister Jeannine Gramick, with her New Ways Ministries staff meeting Pope Francis, is scandalous, because Pope Francis is essentially saying, yeah, these people are fine, even though the Church has pronounced that they are not fine. Here's another tweet about this from Liturgical Press. The staff of New Ways Ministry had a private audience with the Pope to discuss LGBTQ+ ministry today. Francis Di Bernardo gifted Pope Francis a copy of New Ways and New Steps during their meeting. So this guy, this staffer from the New Ways Ministry, has even given Pope Francis their book as a gift. Lucky that Pope Francis doesn't kiss his gifts like Pope John Paul II did. Here's another little tweet from the National Catholic Reporter. Again, National Catholic Reporter, who was asked some time ago by the bishop to stop referring to themselves as Catholic because of the errors that they have in their reporting, and they ignored that and refused. Here's their tweet. The persistence with which Jeannine Gramick worked for church reform is the same that she has displayed in her commitment to those who are marginalized, whose sexuality was described as disordered. So you can see that they don't like the fact that the Church teaches that homosexuality is disordered. And she doesn't like the fact that it teaches that, and James Martin doesn't like the fact that it teaches that. And that's what they essentially would like to change. Why is Pope Francis meeting this lady? Why is he meeting this organization? It probably doesn't come as that much of a surprise to some people, because he has already corresponded with New Ways Ministry in the past. But this is the first time he's actually met up with her and her staffers. And I'm ashamed to say that Jeannine Gramick was born to Polish parents in Philadelphia, so she is actually Polish. That's a picture of Jeannine Gramick when she was younger with Father Robert Nugent, who, as I said earlier, started this whole New Ways Ministries with her. He died almost a decade ago, but she's still around and she's meeting Pope Francis. So there we go. Things like this make me understand more why some people just aren't interested in anything Pope Francis has to say. If he isn't changing church teaching officially, they don't care about people he meets and things he says, because they've had enough of the ambiguity. They've had enough of him appointing dodgy people. They've had enough of him meeting dodgy people. I did see one tweet where somebody wrote, Pope Francis, he meets with all kinds of people, and maybe he was sort of telling them not to do things the way they're doing things and trying to correct them in their ways. But that isn't the case. We know that isn't the case. If that was the case, they wouldn't be so happy with this meeting. They wouldn't be bragging about it, posting pictures of it. Pope Francis makes some very odd decisions. He's still the Pope. He isn't an anti-Pope. And we need to respect his position as the Holy Father and head of the Catholic Church. But he is doing so many things that makes good Catholics shake their head in disbelief and makes people who are not Catholics happy. And that's rather strange, isn't it? Anyway, folks, thanks very much for watching. Do leave your comments. Have a blessed day.